Open book, welcome, curious minds and midnight dreamers. You're about to enter a world where stories come alive and every word holds a secret. So grab a cozy seat, maybe a cup of tea, and let me take you on a journey you won't forget. This is story time like you've never heard before. Crescent moon. Ava dashed from the house, her trembling hands clutching her thin coat as if it were a lifeline. The howling wind tore through the desolate fields, but she pressed on, her heart pounding as she raced toward the looming barn in the distance. The oppressive darkness wrapped around her like a shroud, while the faint flicker of the lantern outside the barn danced in the night, its light a distant beacon, calling her closer into the unknown. She halted before the towering wooden door, her heart pounding with a ferocity that felt as if it might burst forth from her chest at any moment. In the stillness of the space, the soft yet deliberate sound of hooves echoed, as if the horse sensed her nearing presence, or perhaps held an instinctive knowledge of her approach. Ava pushed the door open, the sharp creak of the hinges slicing through the thick silence that cloaked the room. Finn towered before her, an imposing presence, his intense black eyes locked onto hers with unwavering focus. Drawing in a steadying breath, she moved toward the horse, every step deliberate and filled with purpose. The barn was suffocating, each breath heavy with an unnameable tension, every subtle movement charged with a mystery that slipped through her grasp. Text, you were waiting for me, weren't you? Her voice slipped through the air like a delicate breeze, soft and laced with the weight of a hidden truth, inviting and intimate as if a clandestine secret was being unveiled. Finn tilted his head just enough, a delicate gesture that hinted at an unspoken reply. His gaze held an unspoken depth, a silent communication that ensnared Ava, leaving her motionless, entranced, unable to tear her eyes away. After years of silence, a wave of realization washed over her, a profound sense of being seen and heard, a feeling that had slipped through her fingers during her time with Mason. A powerful surge of emotion engulfed her, a tantalizing blend of comfort and peril that left her breathless. As she reached out, her fingers swept through Finn's mane, the heat of his body wrapping around her touch like a comforting embrace. An electric current surged down her spine, igniting a realization that her life had irrevocably transformed in that fleeting moment. The wind outside howled with a ferocity that seemed to shake the very foundations of the world, but Ava stood unmoved, her heart untouched by its relentless wails. Everything around her faded into an eerie silence, enveloping her in a profound stillness. Only she and Finn remained, bound by a deepening secret that twisted through the darkness, a flicker poised to ignite into something extraordinary. Ava stood frozen in the dim light of the barn, her fingers gently gliding through Finn's mane, while her gaze drifted into the distant void, lost in thought. With her eyes shut tight, she inhaled deeply, letting the rich scents of parched hay, damp earth, and the comforting warmth of the horse beside her wash over her, pulling her into a world of tranquility and connection. In this tranquil refuge, she felt an exhilarating release from the icy, heartless confines of her home, from Mason's vacant stares, and from the unyielding isolation that had consumed her soul for what felt like an eternity. Memories crashed over her, relentless and consuming, like a mighty tide pulling her under. Once, Ava believed with unwavering certainty that love could conquer any barrier that stood in its way. Once she and Mason were a pair of blazing flames, their bond fierce and unyielding, igniting everything around them with their intensity. She remembered the instant their worlds collided, how Mason had effortlessly summoned laughter, leaving her breathless and in tears with his razor-sharp wit and magnetic charm. She recalled the infinite nights spent by the flickering flames, sharing dreams of a luminous tomorrow. In those days, Mason had sworn an unbreakable oath to stand by her side, weaving a life together that they could cherish forever. Yet as time unfurled its relentless tapestry, those promises morphed into a fleeting luxury, a treasure seldom glimpsed. Mason plunged into his work, swept away by a relentless storm of meetings and business trips that felt like they would never end. Ava struggled to remember the last time they had shared a dinner, undisturbed by the relentless buzz of his phone. With every return, it was as if he was embracing a stranger, someone both known and unknown, shrouded in mystery. He would step into the room, the weight of his bag thudding against the floor, and for a fleeting moment, he would wrap her in his arms before disappearing into the luminous world of his laptop screen. Ava had fought with every ounce of her being, desperately grasping at the fraying threads of what little was left. With unwavering dedication, she orchestrated enchanting dinners, striving to revive the spark of their long-lost, vibrant conversations. Yet Mason persistently dismissed her with the same weary words. I find myself utterly exhausted, Ava. Shall we engage in conversation at a more opportune moment? But the moment they had been waiting for remained elusive, slipping through their fingers like sand. Once, she believed with unwavering certainty that time could heal even the deepest of wounds. Yet it only served to widen the chasm that lay between them. Mason was not a malevolent spirit lurking in the shadows. He was a man of quiet resolve, neither betraying trust nor harboring resentment, and he carried himself with a calm that belied any hint of neglect. Yet his indifference loomed like a dark cloud over Ava, enveloping her in a chilling sense of invisibility, as if she were slowly fading into a ghost haunting the very halls of her own marriage. When Mason took Finn under his wing, she thought it was just another fleeting whim of his. Yet Finn had risen as the singular beacon of hope in Ava's otherwise bleak and shadowy world. In the depths of the horse's soulful eyes, she unearthed a serenity that had slipped through her fingers for far too long. Yet it was so much more than that. Ava struggled to banish the vivid memory of her first meeting with Peyton, the enigmatic horse trainer Mason had brought into her life. Peyton stood tall, an imposing figure whose piercing gaze pierced through every facade. A subtle melancholy lingered around her, hinting at the hidden scars she bore within. Peyton was not one for idle chatter, yet when she chose to speak, her words sliced through the silence like arrows, hitting the truths Ava had long been running from. She remembered that fateful afternoon when she and Peyton stood outside the barn, their voices weaving a tapestry of thoughts and secrets about Finn. Peyton's eyes bore into hers, a gaze so intense it felt as though it peeled back every layer of Ava's soul. In that moment, she spoke a sentence that would resonate through the corridors of Ava's mind for all eternity. It is captivating how horses like Finn hold an extraordinary gift for sensing truths that humans frequently overlook. In moments of solitude, the deepest connections often take root, shaping our very essence. In that fleeting moment, Ava's lips curled into a polite smile, yet her eyes held a depth of unspoken thoughts as she dismissed it all with a graceful wave of her hand. As she stood before Finn, the echo of Peyton's words hung in the air, heavy with an almost prophetic significance. Though she fought against the thought, a flicker of doubt crept in. Perhaps Peyton had been right all along. It was her solitude, the emptiness that Mason could never fill, that slowly drew her to Finn, inch by tantalizing inch. Her fingers danced softly through Finn's mane, relishing the warmth that pulsed beneath her touch. You know, Finn, she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. There are moments when I yearn to capture the wild essence of a horse, just as you do. In the stillness, a profound peace envelopes everything. Free from the weight of conflict, a pure sense of freedom reigns. Finn held his tongue, but his eyes spoke volumes, revealing a profound comprehension that lingered in the air. In that fleeting moment, a surge of relief coursed through Ava, enveloping her like a warm embrace. Yet beneath the surface, she sensed the tides of change swirling around her, and she realized there was no turning back. The moon hung high in the sky, its silvery glow spilling over the fields like a shimmering blanket, illuminating the slender trail that meandered toward the barn, beckoning with an air of mystery. Ava advanced with purpose, each step elongated, as though an invisible force was steering her inexorably toward Finn. The wind howled, a fierce chill gnawing at her skin, but she stood resolute, unyielding in the face of nature's fury. A tempest stirred within her, an indistinct yet all-consuming force, as if her heart called out for an understanding that danced just beyond the reach of her mind. The barn door creaked open, its hinges whispering secrets in the stillness of the night. Finn lingered, his dark, enigmatic eyes reflecting the soft glow of the moonlight, casting an alluring spell over the night. In that fleeting moment, Ava felt the essence of her world start to dissolve into nothingness. Mason had vanished, abandoning the icy, emotionless phone calls and the endless solitude of evenings that had once loomed like an eternity. In that moment, it was only her and Finn, bound by an unspoken bond that transcended the need for words. Once again, you found yourself lingering in anticipation for my arrival, didn't you? She whispered, her voice a soft reverberation of a concealed reality. She edged closer, her fingers brushing gently against Finn's sleek ebony mane. The horse's warm breath enveloped her, a tender and silent embrace that whispered promises of solace and security. Her fingers glided over the smooth, lustrous strands of his coat, a gentle caress that spoke of intimacy and connection. The weight in her chest slowly lifted, transforming into a tranquility so rare it felt like stepping into an uncharted realm. In a heartbeat, the very air around them shifted dramatically. Ava stood frozen, a fog clouding her mind, unable to grasp the reason behind her sudden actions. Perhaps it was the way Finn's eyes ensnared hers, or the slight tilt of his head that seemed to acknowledge her touch. Perhaps it was the storm raging inside her, the isolation, the yearning, and the gaping void that remained unfulfilled. Her hand hovered near his face, fingers brushing against his skin, the warmth radiating between them like an electric current. With her eyes softly closed, she drew in a deep breath, relishing the stillness of the moment. Yet even that breath trembled with uncertainty. Finn, his name slipped from her lips, not as a call but as an awakening, a spark igniting something deep within her. The horse shifted gracefully, lowering his head as if in silent recognition of an unseen signal. His stance, resolute and steeped in deep understanding, wrapped around Ava like a cloak, igniting the feeling that he could unravel the chaotic thoughts swirling in her mind. His gaze pierced through the air, deep and unwavering, demanding nothing yet holding an irresistible allure that ensnared her, leaving her powerless to look away. Her breath grew heavier, each inhale a struggle against the weight of the moment. She crept closer, as though the chasm between them was an unbearable abyss, desperate to be bridged. A prolonged silence hung in the atmosphere, thick with anticipation and unspoken words. Her hand came to rest softly on Finn's chest, feeling the strong, unwavering beat of his heart pulse beneath her fingertips. Yet within her a chaotic rhythm throbbed, ready to shatter her carefully crafted facade. She silenced her thoughts. In that moment, for the first time in her life, every fragment of reason, every notion of right and wrong, and all echoes of logic succumbed to an overwhelming stillness. She stood face to face with the raw core of her emotions, or perhaps a piece of herself that had been hidden away for far too long. As Ava took a single tentative step, a subtle shift of her weight sent ripples through her reality, shattering her entire universe into fragments. She had lost her very essence, a shadow of her former self drifting through the remnants of what once was. She had cast off the tired, hollow facade of Ava that she had once inhabited. She was a woman shrouded in a whirlwind of emotions that felt utterly alien to her. But then, a faint noise pierced the spellbinding atmosphere. Ava flinched as if yanked from a mesmerizing dreamscape, her senses jolted back to reality. A slender beam of light sliced through the suffocating darkness of the barn, and in that instant her heart seized with fear. Peyton lingered in the doorway, her keen, penetrating gaze as sharp as a dagger, locked onto Ava with an intensity that could slice through the air. Ava grasped the unspoken truth, a silent revelation washing over her like a tide. Peyton had seen everything unfold before her eyes. The barn was enveloped in a chilling stillness, a heavy silence that seemed to hold its breath, waiting for something to break the tension. Peyton stood frozen, her expression a captivating mix of disbelief and cold calculation, as though she were piecing together the shattered remnants of the scene that had just played out before her. Ava parted her lips, but a thick silence wrapped around her, rendering her utterly voiceless. Her breath escaped in the frigid night air, a quiet revelation hanging in the silence. Shame, guilt, and fear pressed down on her chest like a suffocating weight, but beneath it all, an unexpected flicker of relief began to awaken. A wave of liberation surged through her, as the weight of her secret finally lifted, no longer a solitary burden to bear. Ava, Peyton's voice sliced through the silence, unwavering and determined. What do you think you are doing? The direct question cut through the air, sharp and clear, leaving no room for ambiguity. Peyton stepped into the barn, her movements measured and calm, as if she were crossing into another world. Ava stumbled back, her heart racing while Finn stood firm, a resolute beacon in the tempest's fury. Doubt clouds my mind. Ava hesitated, her voice trembling and delicate, as if it might shatter at any moment. Peyton came to a sudden stop just inches away, her intense gaze penetrating into the very core of Ava's being. Do you sense the path this is taking? Peyton asked, her voice low, yet every word landed with a sharp intensity. You're dancing with fire, Ava, and when it blazes to life, nothing will be left to salvage. Ava stood frozen, her mind racing yet utterly devoid of speech. She stood frozen, her eyes locked onto Peyton's, while a storm of emotions swirled violently inside her. In that moment, She realized with a jolt that Peyton was undeniably right. She grasped the truth hidden within those words. Yet, even with that awareness gnawing at her, she felt powerless to stop herself. Not right now. Not when she had already crossed a threshold she once thought was insurmountable. Peyton stood unwaveringly before Ava, her gaze sharp and intense, cutting through the air like a finely honed blade. The barn's oppressive atmosphere thickened around Ava, wrapping her in a suffocating weight that turned each breath into a laborious battle. She was ensnared by Peyton's piercing gaze, trapped in the undeniable truth of what had just unfolded, and powerless to summon any justification for her actions. Did you honestly think this secret would stay buried, Ava? Peyton's voice flowed with a steady rhythm, but beneath that calm exterior lay a simmering intensity, ready to erupt at any moment. Did you truly think that no one would notice the change within you, the way your eyes flicker with a new intensity every time you emerge from this barn? Ava took a step back, her heart racing as the shadows loomed closer. Her hand clutched tightly to Finn's mane, the only lifeline keeping her from spiraling into chaos. Yet Finn, the horse she had once believed understood her soul better than any other, now stood silent and distant. The air was thick with an eerie stillness, a profound silence that held sway over everything. An unseen presence hovered nearby, watching intently from a realm just beyond reach. I didn't mean to, Ava croaked, her voice a fragile whisper, strained and raspy as if the weight of her words hung heavy in the air. She realized that her words carried no weight, fading into the silence around her. She could not deny Peyton's observation, yet words eluded her, trapped beneath the surging waves of tumultuous emotions that crashed over her, sweeping her off her feet like an irresistible whirlwind. Didn't mean to? Peyton let out a sharp, cutting laugh, tinged with a hint of bitter irony. Ava, this is no random event. It is a calculated choice, and you know exactly what you are doing. Peyton's words struck Ava like a thunderclap, reverberating through her very core. Yet instead of remorse, she felt herself teetering on the edge of a dark abyss. The storm brewing inside her, shame, anger, and an aching desire, teetered on the edge of an explosive release. What is it that ignites the fire of your curiosity? Ava's voice sliced through the air, more piercing than she intended, hovering dangerously close to a shout. This is my reality, a realm so profound that you cannot begin to grasp the shadows of my journey, nor can you understand the isolation that wraps around me like a shroud. Peyton's expression held firm, unwavering against the storm of uncertainty around her. You're right, Peyton replied, her voice soft yet heavy with meaning. Yet I am certain of one thing. You are unraveling not only your own essence but also the intricate lives of those who orbit around you. Ava felt the rawness of her vulnerability exposed to the world around her. She lingered in that moment, ensnared by Peyton's icy, penetrating gaze and the unsettling silence that enveloped Finn. Every justification, every excuse she had woven for herself now echoed with a chilling emptiness. She was a woman caught in a web, overwhelmed by emotions that slipped through her fingers like sand. Ava murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Lucas will never understand. She turned her gaze away, her eyes shimmering in the moonlight that seeped through the cracks in the barn wall. He has always remained oblivious to the depths of my true self. Not exactly. Could that be the driving force behind what you've done? Peyton pressed forward, the distance that had once loomed between them collapsing into mere strides. Ava, I am not here to cast judgment upon you. Yet, understanding the gravity of the situation is crucial. The road you tread will not guide you to the freedom you seek. It will only deepen the turmoil. Ava's heart raced with the need to speak out, to unleash her voice and assert that Peyton was completely overlooking the truth. Yet, how could she challenge the truth of Peyton's words? How could she ignore the stark reality that she had crossed a threshold from which there was no turning back? A sudden jarring noise shattered the tranquility, cutting through the silence with the ruthless accuracy of a blade. Ava came to a sudden stop, her eyes narrowing as they flicked toward the origin of the sound. The car's headlights sliced through the night, illuminating the field with a sharp, unwavering glow that pierced the shadows like a blade. Lucas! Her heart tightened, a cold wave crashing over her, rendering her motionless in that moment. Peyton's gaze fell upon Ava, her sharp eyes momentarily softening, a fleeting spark of unexpected sympathy igniting within her stare. Ava, you stand at a crossroads, Peyton urged, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. Her voice had taken on a softer timbre, Yet the determination behind it burned just as fiercely. Now is the time to face the consequences of your choices, or risk being engulfed by the turmoil you have unleashed. Ava's breath quickened, each gasp a frantic whisper as Lucas's car drew near. The headlights pierced the darkness, illuminating the barn wall and exposing the stark fear etched across her pale face. She stood frozen, engulfed in a fog of confusion, her mind racing yet devoid of the words to break the silence or the courage to make a move. She felt the weight of every hidden secret, every suppressed emotion, teetering on the brink of exposure, ready to spill into the open. "Ava," Peyton declared again, her voice unwavering and filled with determination. "This is your moment of reckoning, a pivotal crossroads where the weight of choice rests entirely in your hands." Ava shot a fleeting look at Peyton, her eyes darting to Finn, before locking onto the blinding headlights approaching in the distance. Amidst the chaos of her swirling thoughts, a fierce clarity pulsed within her heart, guiding her through the storm of confusion that threatened to engulf her. In that fleeting moment, a chilling realization washed over her. She had exhausted every possible avenue of escape. The headlights pierced the darkness, illuminating the barn door and exposing every detail of Ava's anxious face with striking intensity. She stood frozen, as if the very fabric of time had unraveled around her. Peyton took a step back, opening a space for Ava, but she stood her ground, unmoving. Peyton's sharp eyes, usually cold and unwavering, now held a tranquil, watchful calm, as if she were bracing herself for the moment Ava would make her final decision. The vehicle came to a sudden stop just beyond the threshold of the barn, its presence looming in the stillness of the night. Lucas stepped into view, his imposing silhouette casting a long dark shadow under the harsh glare of the headlights. The car door slammed shut with a resounding thud, plunging the world back into an eerie silence that wrapped around everything like a thick fog. He halted, his eyes scanning the area with a fleeting intensity before he stepped purposefully toward the barn. "Is that really you, Ava? Is there anyone here?" Lucas spoke with a calmness that was characteristic of him, but to Ava, his voice echoed like thunder rolling across a serene night sky. She turned to confront him, their eyes meeting with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. In that brief instant, she realized he knew something she did not. It may have been shrouded in ambiguity, or perhaps it was just a primal feeling, but he felt an undeniable certainty deep within him. "I couldn't sleep," she confessed, her voice striving for steadiness, yet the quiver in her breath revealed the turmoil within. "I felt a deep urge to ask about Finn." As Lucas stepped into the barn, his eyes flickered from Ava to Peyton, who stood a few paces off, silent and still like a lurking shadow. The tension in the air was palpable, thick and suffocating, as Peyton's brow furrowed and his gaze darted between the two women, acutely aware of the unspoken conflict that hung heavily in the confined space. "Is something unfolding?" he asked, his voice tinged with intrigue, his eyes probing for answers. Peyton held her tongue, but Ava knew that silence would not be her fate. This was her moment to face the truth head-on, to grasp the weight of the responsibility for everything she had battled so fiercely to hide. Every eye was locked onto her, and she felt the weight of countless paths merging into one intense gaze. Once again, she could opt for deception, allowing the suffocating burden of concealed truths and regret to linger in the air. Or she could summon the courage to confront it all, the shame, the pain, and the vulnerability that had long haunted her, a relentless specter she had been paralyzed with fear to face. Her eyes flickered to Peyton, whose calm yet determined presence radiated an undeniable challenge. Then to Lucas, whose eyes, weighed down by worry, flickered with a hint of uncertainty that she couldn't ignore. She realized that the moment for escape had finally slipped away. "Lucas," she began, her voice thick with emotion, "there's a secret I must reveal to you." Lucas froze, his eyes narrowing as a flicker of confusion danced across his features. He stood frozen, his gaze locked onto hers, unwavering and mute. Peyton tilted her face, stepping back as if to grant them a fleeting moment of solitude, the air thick with unspoken tension. Yet she lingered in the shadowy embrace of the barn. Ava took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the weight of the moment. Every word she yearned to voice tangled tightly in a knot within her throat. She pondered the time she had completely surrendered to the depths of her soul, those fleeting moments when she locked eyes with Finn and unearthed a solace that Lucas had always failed to deliver. As she wrestled with the ache of longing, the sting of embarrassment, and the weight of urgency, A chilling realization gripped her. If she chose silence in this moment, those emotions would imprison her soul for all time. "I felt so alone, Lucas," she whispered, her voice quivering as tears streamed down her cheeks like a silent storm. "It has haunted me for what feels like an eternity, and now I stand at the edge of despair, desperate to escape its relentless grip. Everything we once shared, every thread of our connection, now feels like a mere whisper lost in the shadows of time." Lucas paused, the weight of his decision hanging in the air, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. He lingered in that moment, his gaze piercing into hers, searching for the hidden truths buried deep within her words. "What message are you attempting to share, Ava?" His voice echoed gently, each syllable laden with an undeniable gravity. "In a realm where solace was never meant to exist, I searched desperately," her voice quivering with raw emotion as she spoke. I'm lost in the currents, Lucas. A silence envelopes me, heavy with unspoken truths, as I realize I have crossed an unseen threshold." Lucas stepped back, his eyes widening in disbelief, as if the words he was hearing were a revelation too incredible to grasp. He uttered the words again, his voice low and barely audible, as if he had crossed an unseen boundary. Ava felt a constriction in her chest, as if an invisible hand were clutching her heart with an unyielding grip. "The words escape me," she said, her voice tinged with a sense of wonder. "A chilling realization grips me. I have strayed too far into the abyss, and now the path back has vanished into the shadows." She braced herself for the storm of Lucas's wrath, dreading the piercing edge of his words. The door slammed shut with a force that echoed through the silence. But he made a different choice. He stood frozen, his eyes locked onto hers, his face a tangled tapestry of emotions that eluded her grasp. Finally, he spoke, his voice resonating with a profound gravity. "Do you still harbor feelings for me, Ava?" The moment that question slipped into the air, it shattered the delicate walls she had painstakingly built around herself. Ava's eyes locked onto his, tears streaming down her cheeks like a relentless waterfall. "Unease not at me, Lucas. Lost in a labyrinth of uncertainty, I feel an intense longing to uncover what once was mine. I yearn to unravel the mysteries that shroud our present existence." Peyton remained silent, but Ava felt her presence, steadfast and determined, watching everything unfold. With a quiet determination, Lucas turned and stepped out of the barn, his departure heavy with unvoiced goodbyes. His silhouette melted away into the gentle radiance of the car's headlights, leaving Ava frozen in place, feeling emptier than she had ever imagined. As Peyton approached, her sharp eyes softened, revealing a surprising warmth that enveloped the moment. "You did the right thing," she said, her voice a gentle whisper, yet filled with unwavering conviction. Ava held her tongue, the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air around her. She turned to confront Finn, who stood motionless, his deep, dark eyes locked onto hers, as if they held the answers to the mysteries that eluded her grasp. She edged closer, her fingers weaving gently through his mane, savoring the moment as if it were the last time they would share this intimate connection. In that fleeting moment, a revelation struck her, illuminating the path she was destined to follow. Driven by an unyielding force, she stepped out of the barn, leaving behind the suffocating shadows that had ensnared her for what felt like an eternity. Outside, the moon hung high, its cold light spilling across the landscape like a silver shroud. In the depths of night, Ava pressed forward, weighed down by the shadows of her pain and regret. Yet within her a flicker of hope remained, an ember that whispered of a day when she might reclaim the essence of who she once was.